This is a 21 Pilots related video. If you aren't heavily invested in the band, then this is all gonna be gibberish. It's all gibberish anyway. Alright, my camera battery's low, so let's get this show on the road. I think I figured something out, and this epiphany came to me in the shower. If you've been following this story for a while, you know that there is a character named Nicolas Bourbaki, or also known as Nico, and I randomly got the urge to research him at like 2 in the morning for no good reason. I had papers due, and did I do them? No. Instead, I was on Wikipedia for 2 hours researching Nicolas Bourbaki, and then I was on other random websites. Who is Nicolas Bourbaki? I'm glad you asked. When you first look up Nicolas Bourbaki, you will find a group of mathematicians. You'll find a group of mathematicians who named themselves this in order to like publish algebra books. The more you look into them, the more harmless they seem. Like, why would Tyler use this random group of mathematicians as the #1 enemy of the whole album? I look a little deeper, and the name Nicolas Bourbaki actually came from a French general. The last name Bourbaki did. His actual name, Charles Denis Bourbaki. He was a French general in the 1800s. I don't remember what war it was, but it was a war in France. Oh, my college education is going to waste. These mathematicians were also French people, and they chose a French general to name their group after. So, who was the original Nicolas Bourbaki? He apparently was great at his job, originally. He did a great job, he was known for massive success, until there came to a point where he lost 63,000 men in battle. That's a big deal, especially in the 1800s when the population wasn't as big as it is today. This is a big deal today, but an even bigger deal back in the 1800s during a war. So since he lost this many men in battle, it came to a point where he was about to be forced to surrender. But he was so embarrassed by this and so ashamed of himself for this massive loss that he tried to commit suicide, and that's what he's most famous for. His suicide attempt was failed. He put a gun to his head, pulled the trigger, and apparently the bullet hit his skull but like flattened against it. So all it really did was gave him a concussion, and like that's it. And he never tried to commit suicide again. So if you hear that and you're a fan of 21 Pilots, that should freak you the heck out. I know when I first read that I was like, holy crap! So why is this a big deal? Glad you asked. Here we go. So what is the connection between this Bourbaki story, which I'm just going to put a B, because I don't feel like putting that whole name back on there. That's just too much. What is the connection to 21 Pilots? The name 21 Pilots came from a play, and the name of it escapes me right now, but basically it was someone who was in charge of making parts for airplanes. And they knew after a ton of parts had been made that the parts were faulty. So he had to decide if he wanted to take the embarrassment of admitting that these parts were faulty and having to remake them and spend, millions of dollars to fix this issue and possibly lose his job, just a whole embarrassing thing, or just not say anything. The guy chose to just not say anything, and 21 pilots lost their lives. 21 pilots died because of this. So this is where Tyler got the name 21 Pilots, is from a sort of failure, an attempt to hide shame, hide embarrassment, and there's a whole lot that goes in there. So now that we remember this makes a lot more sense. Oh my gosh! The name Nicolas Bourbaki came from a French general. He made a mistake that cost a lot of lives. He was so embarrassed that he tried to hide his mistake, tried to avoid surrender by killing himself and having someone else take the fall, someone else take the blame. While I don't think the person in this story tried to commit suicide, the whole idea of suicide being involved is a huge 21 Pilots thing, especially since neon gravestones exist on this album. So we're gonna backtrack a little bit to clear our path along the way to my final point, which I think is gonna blow your minds because it blew my mind when I was just sitting in the shower, letting the water sort of run down my empty, lifeless face. Let's take a look at the Demo website. Just do a quick little refresher. plus a few things I happened to notice that I had not noticed before. The Dima website has letters from a man named Clancy. It seems like there are districts, and each district has their own bishop. Clancy's bishop, his name is Keons. Now, the names of the bishops were kind of like decoded back in the day, where supposedly the names of them, like the letters, corresponded with certain parts of songs, and supposedly Keons corresponds with Heavy Dirty Soul. So, Heavy Dirty Soul, he talks about, "Can you save my heavy dirty soul?" That's like the chorus. And I don't know if y'all knew this because it's super obvious, but Tyler's a Christian, so a lot of his music talks about his faith. "Can you save my heavy dirty soul" is like a plea to God, like, I'm messed up, like, can you even save this? So this Keons has to do with like salvation, I would say. Another thing about Keons that I just discovered last night, and apparently the rest of you have known this and no one's told me, so thanks. Apparently Keons is a real name and it has Persian origins, and it translates to King of Kings. Keon essentially has the same root etymology as John, which is from the Hebrew meaning God is gracious. On the Dima website, Clancy kind of talks good about Keons. He sort of says that Keons is like a good bishop and that the other bishops are like more ruthless, especially Nico, and that Keons is very kind and gracious to them. And so he's never really felt a need to escape from Dima because his bishop was like a chill dude, right? He was a cool guy. At one point, Clancy even says that he and the other people who follow Keons are proud to serve him. So I'm willing to bet, honestly, that Keons is God, basically. Let's say that this is God. Tyler said that Clancy is his own separate character. But Tyler also said that he created this world of Dima to explore things that he's been struggling with, doubts that he's been having, and in one interview he even said that he was going to explore the idea of a world without God. Clancy is Tyler, but he's not. So Clancy is a character created by Tyler. So Clancy is sort of his own third-party thing, but just like how Blurryface was a character, but Blurryface was also Tyler, Tyler and Blurryface are the same person. I think we forget that. Blurryface is the parts of Tyler that he does not like about himself. It's his, like, bad side, like Jekyll and Hyde. So Blurryface and Tyler are the same person, but Tyler created the character of Blurryface to sort of separate himself from the things he doesn't like about himself, the evil parts of himself, so that he can easier combat it, I guess, so to speak. In a sense, Clancy is Tyler, or the vessel that Tyler embodies in order to figure out whatever he's dealing with, in order to live in this world of Dima and to escape it and to figure this out, in order to escape Keons, basically. God, essentially, in this narrative, to kind of take a step back and leave and, like, what is a world without God? And he admitted that in an interview. I'm not stretching that too far, I hope. So I wanted to take this little side route because we kept thinking that, oh, well, Clancy's not Tyler. He's not, but he is. Just like Blurryface. Blurryface is a character, but he's also Tyler. He's a part of Tyler. So is Clancy. Clancy is not Tyler, but Clancy is a part of Tyler. Does that make sense? When I say it out loud, it kind of doesn't, but it does. We're gonna go straight to the song Morph. If we remember on the Dima website, it says that Nico was a tormentor. He was like the worst possible bishop. He's bad dude. The lyrics in Morph at one point go, above is blind belief, under is sword to sleeve, and around is scientific miracle. So around is scientific miracle. He's talking about the mathematicians, sort of, in this sense. He's talking about scientific miracle. Math and science are like they, you know. He says around is scientific miracle. That's a reference to Nico, the mathematician group, focusing on math, focusing on the world around and scientific miracle instead of spiritual, above or below, under. If and when we go above, the question still remains. He's talking about, like, let's pick above and see. I don't know if you remember, but east is up. So if and when we go above, if and when we go east, the question still remains. I'm still not 100% sure what we mean by east, but I do know that Jesus was in Israel, and that's east of us. So if and when we go above, the question still remains. Are we still in love, and is it possible we feel the same? This is Clancy talking. If you think about it, because Clancy adores Keon's his bishop. He's asking, really, if I go through Trench, if I try to walk away from you and leave this world, are we still gonna be in love? Like, am I still gonna love you, or am I gonna find, you know, that either you're not real, or am I gonna find that maybe you're not as good as I thought you were? That's a valid question, and one that a lot of Christians have asked. Like, you see bad things happening, you feel like you're going through a lot, you're questioning a lot of things. Like, is God as good as we think he is? Like, I don't know, like, at the end of the day, like, when I get through this, are we still cool? Are we still gonna be in love? That's just what I think. That's my humble opinion. And then he says, that's when going under starts to take my wonder. He doesn't want to not believe. And speaking of, in Bandito, the lyrics are, I could take the high road, but I know that I'm going low. This is in reference to another Clancy letter where he talks about how the banditos come, like, under the city to get people out, so they go low. Going under, oh my god, I just figured that out. Okay, I just finally put the pieces together. So going under starts to take my wonder. The idea of leaving, going under and escaping, starts to take your wonder, because you're like, do I really want to go through this if it means that I lose everything I've ever believed in? Everything that's ever given me hope, like, uh-oh. So that's a big deal. I don't know why that scared me so much. That wasn't even that loud of a noise. I'm getting there, hang in with me. So the song Morph, I'll morph to someone else. To someone else, right? That is Tyler morphs into Clancy. Clancy is the ghost. Clancy is just a ghost of Tyler. So again, he's talking about morph to someone else. We decided that Clancy wasn't Tyler because of a letter that was posted on the Demo website that was speaking in third person, sort of, where it was Clancy watching, like, what happened to Tyler in the jumpsuit music video. But again, morph to someone else, I'm just a ghost. It's like Tyler dissociating. So Tyler was both people at the same time. Tyler was the guy in the trench getting snatched by the bishop, and he was also Clancy watching, like, an out-of-body experience, seeing this happen and thinking about it for himself and then continuing into Trench. So Tyler's both people. That's what morph means. He's talking about morphing into Clancy, morphing into someone else, into a character, that he can sort of safely explore these ideas and it not necessarily be him, but be like a disassociative third party kind of watching over all of this instead of letting it directly hit him. It's a way to protect yourself, you know, it's a defense mechanism mode. So in Bandito, he says, begin with bullet now and fire to the proof. Bourbaki, the general, tried to kill himself with a gun and the bullet flattened. Begin with bullet now and fire to the proof. I'm not 100% sure what the fire thing's about other than neon gravestones talking about a heatless fire, a sort of like dull, so it's like a fire but there's no heat to it, there's no substance to it. People walk around like zombies, you know, in this life. They don't really consider a lot of things. So the main point of this video, and what I hope will blow everyone's mind, I hope that I am not the last person to figure this out. 21 Pilots is Nicolas Bourbaki. Named after a failure? Named after a failure. He told me I'm a copy. That's a lyric in Morph. In theory, 21 Pilots copied the Nicolas Bourbaki group because 21 Pilots is a group that named themselves after a person who failed something, a failure of sorts. Nicolas Bourbaki did the same thing, but they did it first. So in theory, 21 Pilots copied that, though I'm sure when Tyler first came up with the name that he didn't know about Nicolas Bourbaki. Maybe he did. Honestly, I think Tyler has this crap planned out like 9 years in advance. And he also talks about when I hear him mock me, who would be mocking them? Blurry Face. And who is Blurry Face? Nico. Blurry Face is Nico because 21 Pilots is Nicolas Bourbaki. Blurry face is the bad parts of Tyler, his evil parts, the parts of him he's insecure about that he doesn't like. Nico is blurry face. He takes on a new name and a sort of new life in the Trench story, just like Tyler takes on the character of Clancy. You can argue with me on that, but I'm sticking with it. Another thing about Nico was that when we first tried to figure out what the names meant, people thought that this had a G, so that it was Nigo, and that matched up perfectly with Stressed Out in the order of the 9 circles. And Stressed Out is when the name Blurry Face is first spoken on the album. That part's still a little fuzzy, but I get it. 21 Pilots is Nicolas Bourbaki. Are you following me? Is there any way I can explain that better? Blurry Face is Nico, and Blurry Face is a part of Tyler. All of this is parts of Tyler that he's disconnected himself from and placed in different roles so that he can analyze it. Trench is a world, Dima is a world that he created in order to separate parts of himself out, to figure out how he feels about things, how his doubts play a role in it, what those doubts mean, if he can figure out the answers to certain questions. Tyler is Clancy, Blurry Face, Nico, and Bourbaki. And the reason I separate Nico and Bourbaki is that Bourbaki, the general, and Nicolas Bourbaki are 2 separate entities, and Tyler's all of them. Tyler is a part of 21 Pilots. 21 Pilots is named after a failure that resulted in the loss of life because of someone trying to avoid being embarrassed or admitting that they were wrong. Same with Bourbaki, was a French general who lost a lot of men, 63,000 men, and was embarrassed and didn't want to have to face the facts that he had to surrender, so he tried to kill himself in order to avoid embarrassment. 21 Pilots is Nicolas Bourbaki. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I've lost my mind. While you're here, you should subscribe because literally everyone else in the world is, and it's super weird that you're not, and we're all gonna make fun of you unless you do. I'll see you in the next video where I punch my cat right in the face because he deserves it. Peace.
I put my foot in my